we have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti Podcast. One of the indications of sanity is that there is no contradiction within oneself, no imbalance, where thought and action correspond to each other. Hello and welcome to episode 296 of Urgency of Change. The Krishnamurti Podcast features carefully selected extracts from Krishnamurti's recorded talks. Each episode highlights his different approaches to universal, timeless subjects that affect our everyday lives, the state of the world, and the future of humanity. Upcoming themes are activism and social change, children, and detachment. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust based at Brockwood Park in Hampshire, UK. Brockwood is also home to Brockwood Park School, a unique international boarding school offering a personalised holistic education inspired by Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit brockwood.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. Finally, if you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on Sanity has 4 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's first talk in Madras 1977 and is titled Sanity in Observation and Communication.
It is one of the most difficult things to observe actually, which means what is actually taking place now, to observe that and to investigate, if it is possible, that which is being observed. To observe, one must be free. That's an obvious fact. If I want to observe the beauty of the evening, the light on the clouds, and looking through the leaves at the blue sky, you must be free to look. You mustn't be preoccupied. You mustn't be concerned with theories of how to look, how to paint. You must look. So, what we are going to do, if we may, this evening and the following evenings, to learn the art of investigation into the actual, not into what you experience, which may not be true, or your religions and all the rest. We're going to investigate all that. But what is absolutely necessary to examine, to investigate, to explore, there must be freedom. If you are tied to a particular belief or to a particular dogma, to a particular tradition, and are bound by it, intellectually as well as emotionally, or tied so deeply in our daily life, then you can't possibly investigate, obviously. It's like an animal that's being tied to a post, and it can only wander within its radius of its the length of its rope. So what is important, if I may suggest, and I hope you will follow this, to examine, to explore, there must be freedom. That is, you are exploring now, not when you go home or when you feel inclined, but sitting here, talking over together, communicating with each other. We are actually investigating. This is one of the most difficult things to do. To observe, to examine, to explore what is actually going on. Of course, you cannot possibly explore or investigate politically. That's absurd. Nobody can do that because everything is so uncertain, lopsided, crooked, dishonest, theoretical. So it becomes impossible. Nor the economic condition of the world as it is, because there are constant changes going on. But we human beings, we are riddled with our problems. Not only political, economic, but social, individual, relationship with another. And if we are really very, very serious and honest, inquiring into what is truth. You know, it's one of the most extraordinary things, if you go into it. If you're really seeking truth, compassion, that which is timeless, if you are really deeply concerned and persistently understand what is implied in that pursuit, you are never alone. You understand? When you are seeking truth, you are never alone. You are never lonely. You are not approaching as an individual. When you look at life as an individual, as a separate, fragmented entity, then you are lonely, which we'll all go into presently, all this. So, first, if we may repeat again, to investigate, to observe, to listen, one must be free. Not freedom isn't at the end, but at the beginning. If you are not free, you cannot examine, obviously. It sounds very simple, but it's very, very complex. Because our minds, our brains are so conditioned. And it's impossible, almost impossible, to listen, to investigate without the pressure, without the distorted outlook. So that is our first concern. If you are at all serious, if you want to go into this matter deeply, that one must be free from prejudice, from your own particular experience, from your own dogma, belief, or your innumerable conclusions. So one must be free of all that to examine, right? Are you free now to examine what we are going to look at? So that is the first thing, if I may keep on insisting on it, that as the world is so utterly confused, and each one of us, if we are honest and observing our own actions, we're also very confused, uncertain. And that's why there is the increase of authority, increase of gurus, increase of those who are certain that they know. So you are caught in all this, which prevents you to examine logically, reasonably, sanely. So these are the things we require to examine. Freedom. To be able to think clearly. That means logically. And to see the limit of logic. But you must proceed logically before you see the limit of it. And also, one must have sanity. You know, that sanity is a rather difficult word. Each one will interpret it according to his own inclination. Sanity implies good health first. So that having good health, the illnesses, all those ailments that one has, doesn't distort your examination. So one must have very health, but if one is not well, to know one is not well, and to observe that it doesn't interfere with your observation, with your examination, and therefore to bring about sanity, which means health, clarity, and to observe without any distortion. If you are a Hindu and caught in that ancient tradition, with all the superstition theories and all the nonsense that's going on, then obviously you're not sane. Or if you are a Christian with all their dogma, rituals, beliefs, and again you're not sane. Sanity implies having a capacity to observe oneself clearly, without distortion, without any form of deviation from that which is actually going on. All that means sanity and much more. Now we are communicating with each other. We are saying the meaning of sanity. Now, to communicate, you and the speaker must both be sane, right? Otherwise, you will think something totally different, distort what is being said. So, I hope when we are talking over our innumerable problems, human problems, which we will as we go along, that we are both at the same level, at the same time, with the same intensity. Otherwise, there is no possibility of communication, right? You understand? That is, to meet each other linguistically as well as non-linguistically at the same level, because there is no authority here. We are both examining. Therefore, if one assumes authority, then the communication ceases. So at the same level, at the same time, with the same intensity, means love. Otherwise you can't meet. You understand? It's simple, but very complex to go into it. Because after all, what is love? I'm afraid there is no such thing in this country. They know what is kindness, perhaps, generosity, a little bit, tenderness when it suits them, affection when it is fairly convenient. But that word, not just the meaning of the word, but the whole content of that word. Love implies there is no division. Love implies that all forms of jealousy, antagonism, vanity, and so on have gone from one's heart. So, love is when there is communication, to be at the same level, at the same time, at the same intensity. And that's what we mean by communication.
The second extract is from the second talk in Santa Monica 1972 and is titled Sane Action in an Insane World.
We were saying yesterday morning that in a world that is so insane and confused, where there are so many religious leaders and political politicians, where there is so much violence, sorrow, and a sense of utter despair. It seems natural that one should become a light to oneself. And it is possible only when we understand our condition and go beyond it. That's what we were more or less talking about yesterday morning. And I think we ought to continue where we left off. We have broken up life as the outer and the inner. The outer existence, which demands certain activities, certain labors, jobs, and an inward life, which is also in turmoil. in confusion. When one is concerned with having a job in this world, in this insane society, what is one to do if one has a job? One is contributing further to further confusion, further misery, further insanity. And inwardly, we want to live a different kind of life, separated from the outer. A life that's fairly peaceful, clear, rational, without too much conflict, and perhaps find something, come upon something which is not corrupted, which is not put together by thought or by a cunning mind. So we separate the two, the inner and the outer. And yet we don't see, unfortunately I think, that they are interrelated. That is there a total action in a society that's so corrupt, polluted, so utterly insane? Is there a total action which corresponds both to the inner and to the outer? And to merely be concerned whether we should pay a tax or be conscripted, or is it called draft here in this country? And so, as though that was something separate, apart from our innermost desires, longings, hopes, fears, pleasures. And as we said, they are interrelated, the two are not separate. And to separate them is another form of insanity. Because the more inwardly one is aware, concerned with the understanding of the totality of existence, not a particular segment of it, then that concern, that awareness, brings about an action in the outer, which is not contradictory to the inner. So we are asking, is there a total action which will be sane in an insane world, which will be rational in an irrational world, which will bring about order out of confusion, which will give a sense of joy and beauty to existence, which at present has none whatsoever. So in considering this question, which is there a total action? An action which is not inner, outer, but an action that is totally related, totally complete, so that when there is an outward action, it is as complete as the inward action. You know, this has been a problem that confronts all of us. when the speaker goes to India and talks there, where there is so much poverty, unemployment, overpopulation. For one job, there are probably 10,000 people asking for that job, looking. This problem becomes extraordinarily important. How to act so that there is no contradiction. How to act so that one brings sanity. How to act so that the social structure is changed, transformed. This question must be asked by each one of us. I'm sure we're all asking this question. Not slurring over it, not trying to gloss over the complications of it. But what is one, if one is young, to do? To answer that question, one must go very much more deeply than what is action related to a particular issue. Whether one should join the army, be conscripted, drafted, what kind of job one should have and so on. To go into this problem very deeply, and it's only in the understanding of the fullness of the problem that the superficial problem is answered. But if you merely deal with the superficial problem superficially, then it leads to much more confusion, conflict, and misery and mischief. So, in considering this question, what is there a total action which will be harmonious, outwardly and inwardly, sane, completely rational, healthy? Are you waiting for me to answer this question? I see you are. Please don't wait. Because we're going to share together this problem. The speaker may have solved it for himself. The speaker probably is a beggar, and that's good enough for him. And if you're waiting for an answer from the speaker to see how you can apply what he says to a particular problem or understand the total problem according to his answer, then you are not sharing. Then you're merely accepting another formula, another concept, as you have accepted so many formulas and concepts. And a concept is not an answer. An idea is not an answer. A conglomeration of beliefs is not an answer to a fundamental question as this. So, we are going to share together the problem. That is, we are together, sensitively, hesitantly, rationally examine this problem. And in the understanding of the problem together, you will find the answer for yourself, which is far more important than being told what to do, what is the total action. So we are not concerned with formulas or conclusions, concepts on which you have been brought up. The other day, someone asked, "What do you do?" And I didn't know how to reply. And I said, "I don't quite know what I do. I'm some kind of talker, philosopher, all that kind of stuff. And what is your philosophy?" I said, "It isn't my philosophy. Philosophy means the love of truth, which is not yours or mine. Love of truth. And here is the same problem. We are concerned with something extraordinarily important. And there are very few serious people in the world, very few who will tackle this problem completely. And in a world surrounded by people who are not interested, who are not serious, who are completely concerned with their own pleasures, with their own amusements, with their own satisfactions. And a few that might be interested deeply. What are they to do in a world that is so superficial, so casual, so thoughtless? So that there are these two problems, which is what is a serious person to do? Concerned with the total action. And what is that serious person? What is his relationship with the vast majority of the world, of the human beings, which want a society as it is, with slight modifications? They want complete security. Doesn't matter what happens to any others. They want a way of life that will give them their satisfaction, their fulfillment, and all that business. So that these two problems. Now, to go into this question very deeply, one has to understand what is the motive, what is the drive, the energy that is behind our action, the action of a man who is trying to seek a total action which corresponds both to the inner and the outer, in which there is no contradiction and therefore no conflict. What is the essence of this drive? Is it not? Please, I'm inquiring. I don't say it is or it is not. We are together understanding this problem. Is it not the drive and the search for pleasure, the pursuit of pleasure? Don't please answer me, just look at it. We are going to explore it. This is just the beginning of it. Our society is based on this, on the pursuit of pleasure, continuity of pleasure, through position, power, through money, through sex. We are not saying that pleasure is wrong. We are not becoming puritanical. We are examining. And to examine very clearly, you must be free from your puritanical upbringing or your Victorian upbringing or whatever your upbringing is. There must be freedom to inquire. And therefore there must be no previous conclusion or come to any conclusion as you are inquiring. So, is it not most of our action, both outwardly and inwardly, based on this pursuit in subtle or gross form of pleasure? And what is the difference between pleasure, enjoyment, and joy? We have to understand these three things. When you walk in a wood or along the beach, there's great delight, there's great pleasure. The beauty of the land, the trees, the birds, the light on the water, the sunset among the hills, that peculiar atmosphere that comes about when the sun is setting. And you see in the sky the evening star. That's great pleasure, that's great. There's great joy in that. What is wrong with it? The other day, so-called a teacher, a guru, said when it was pointed out what a beautiful town this was, or what a lovely tree that was, he said, I haven't time to bother with all that. So what is wrong? To look at a beautiful thing, or to eat a perfect food like mango or an orange. What's wrong with it? There is pleasure in it. But when you insist that you must eat mango or orange or have the beautiful sunset every day of your life, and pursue it subtly, consistently, doggedly, then that pursuit brings about an imbalance. And when you are imbalanced, there is neurotic, contradictory action. That's one of the facts of this pursuit of pleasure. Haven't you noticed this? And in the pursuit of this pleasure, there's not only imbalance, contradictory action, a neurotic activity, but also behind it there is a sense of contradiction. You are never enjoying anything but wanting to have more of it. Have you not noticed all this? When you're seeking power, as most people are, whether it's power with a small group or in a family, what's going on in America, the women's lib, is it? Power, domination, assertion, aggression. All these are forms of pleasure. And society in which we live encourages this kind of pleasure. That is, the pursuit of pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure is entirely different from enjoyment. When you see a beautiful sunset, you enjoy it. The color, the light, the purity of an evening, perhaps not in Los Angeles. And the beauty of it is really quite extraordinary, and you enjoy it. That enjoyment is taken over by thought, and thought says, I must have it tomorrow. And you pursue that. Then it becomes pleasure. So, without understanding pleasure, enjoyment, and that strange thing called joy, which cannot be invited. You cannot practice a system in order to be joyous, or go to school or college or attend group therapy or whatever you do in this strange country, analyzed in order to be joyous. You are just being insane. Joy comes when you are not there. When you, with all your problems, with your miseries, with your pettiness, is non-existent, then that happens. Haven't you noticed it for yourself? When you are not thinking about yourself, your wife, your problems, when the mind is quiet, not concerned, has no problem, suddenly the strange thing comes, a total sense of harmony, of complete unity with everything. And that brings about a tremendous sense of ecstasy, joy. So there are these three things: joy, real enjoyment, which is prevented when you are pursuing pleasure. So without going into this problem completely, not theoretically, not in abstraction, not linguistically, which is intellectually, but actually observing yourself, how you are constantly pursuing this thing, and encouraged by a commercial society. And you say to yourself, how am I to act in this insane world, in this commercial world, so that I neither encourage this society and yet I have to live with it. And so we go off at a tangent. But whereas if you inquire, as we are doing now, into this question of action, and action is always in the present, not in the future or in the past. Action means the doing, not having done or going to do. Now, when you and I together look at this, are we looking at the problem verbally? You understand what I mean verbally? Because I've used certain words which may evoke in you certain responses. And according to those responses, you are looking at the problem. Please go listen to this. So you are verbally stimulated to look at the problem. And therefore you are stimulated by the speaker to look. But you are not actually looking, you are stimulated. Which is entirely different from actually you looking at it without any stimulation, observing. So, if you observe non-verbally, without any conclusion, that is, conclusion being verbal images which you have built or which have been handed to you, and through those verbal conclusions you look. So, if you look either through a verbal stimulation of another or through your own conclusions, verbal images that you have, then you are actually not participating in observing what is actually going on. That is, you are not facing facts. You are facing facts through a series of ideas or conclusions. Am I making myself clear? Because this is rather important, if you don't mind. Which is, how do you look at this question of action, the motive behind that action, the persistent pursuit of pleasure, through power, with all its nuances, subtleties, through money, through sex. How do you look at it? Are you an outsider looking in, saying, yes, that is so? Or the very act of looking is the total action? You get what I'm saying? Are we meeting each other? No, I'm afraid not. Look, sir, total action implies total awareness, listening, action implies a look and action in which there is no division. As the outer, inner, acting according to a formula, an idea, a concept, or an image, because they bring about a division. And to be free of them, so that you can look at the whole problem. When you are capable of looking at the total problem, then that very look is the total action. Look, let me put it differently. I see we're not communicating with each other. You know what communication means? To share, to create, to work, to think together. If you are thinking of something else and the speaker is going on talking about his own thing, then you are not meeting each other. We have a problem. I want to earn a livelihood. I have to. And I see in this world, which is quite appalling, quite frightening, and strangely mad, I see that and I say, now what am I to do? Shall I join them? If I do, I shall continue maintaining the insanity, whether the insanity in China or in Russia or in this country or anywhere else. We are not these sane people, apart from those insane people. We're all in the same boat. Now what am I to do? I have to earn a livelihood. I have to have a job. Am I to be concerned only with the job and seeing if I do whatever I do, I contribute to all? So how shall I meet this problem? And it's a very vital problem. It isn't just a superficial problem. It's my life. I have another 50 years to live. I want to live rightly. I want to live decently. I want to live with clarity, with happiness. Not run after endlessly the analysts and the gurus and all the rest of that business. So what am I to do? And I see action in my life is broken up. I'm one thing on one occasion, another on another occasion, and so on, broken up, fragmented. And my actions are also fragmented. My private life and my public life. My private life with all my pleasures, joys, agonies, and public life in which I comply, become a mechanic or whatever it is. So, I want to find out an action which is totally harmonious, whole, complete, which has meaning in my life.
The third extract is from Krishnamurti's fourth talk in Paris 1965 and is titled Sanity and Virtue Go Together.
To be really sane is one of the most difficult things. Because very few of us are really balanced, sane, rational, clear-sighted. And without being inwardly and outwardly extraordinarily balanced, where psychologically everything is in order, without contradiction. Sanity seems to me, is very difficult. Because one of the indications of sanity is that there is no contradiction within oneself. There is no imbalance where thought and action correspond to each other, actually, not theoretically. Where what you think is what you do. There is no contradiction between the two. Where belief is non-existent. Because you are dealing with facts, with what is, and not with what should be. Because what should be is not real. What is real. And a mind that would understand sanity and order must surely be free from every kind of belief and dogma, superstition and ideation. Because they are obviously contradict what one actually is. And when there is such contradiction, as one's whole life is more or less a contradiction, then out of that contradiction, various forms of disharmony, contradiction, imbalance arise. So it seems to me to find whatever there is, what is called truth, if there is such a thing, to find out for oneself if there is something far more than the mere projection of a clever, cunning, philosophical mind, or a mind that escapes from the daily routine of boredom, conformity, to find out something beyond the mere physical existence. Surely one must have extraordinary order in one's life. Order in the sense where there is no contradiction of any kind. Because contradiction does breed imbalance. Like a man who wants peace, does everything in actual life not to have peace. The two cannot possibly go together. And because they do not go together, because there is a great disturbance in this contradiction, and the strain of that contradiction, does breed enmity within oneself. And this enmity within oneself brings about lack of balance, lack of sanity. Because, as I said, I would like to talk about something which is not Eastern or Western. The word is generally applied in India or in Asia. The word is meditation. And to really understand that, what it is to meditate, because it seems to me, if one does not know how to, if the mind is not in a meditative state, one misses a great deal of life. Because our life is pretty shallow, rather empty, dull. And the petty little mind, trying to divine the mysterious, the unknowable, obviously creates an image of itself, of its own pettiness. And so the question is whether a little mind, the mind that is full of worry, despair, anxious, striving to change itself to be something, that petty little mind, can it transform itself and open wide horizons and break through its own limitations? Because unless it does, sanity becomes almost impossible. And sanity is order. Not only outwardly, but inwardly, inside the skin, as it were. And it matters a great deal how this order is brought about. Because most of us are very disorderly inwardly. You may have a great deal of knowledge, orderly information, outward clarity, argument, purpose. But inwardly, most of us are confused, in conflict. And that's seen by the clever writers. The more they are in contradiction within themselves, the greater the strain. And that tension, if they have a gift, produces all kinds of literature. But it is basically a sick mind. And most of us, I'm afraid, are confused. There's no clarity. This clarity can only be discovered not through another, not by following some authority or particular system of thought, ancient or modern. So, this clarity can only be found, which is order, and therefore which is virtue. Because order, in its ultimate, subtle sense, is virtue. Not the morality which society imposes, which is not morality at all. The social morality is immorality. Because it breeds every form of contradiction, every form of ambition, competition. Society, by its very nature, whether in the communist world or in the Western world, does breed an outward social conformity called morality. But such morality, if one goes into it very deeply, is immoral. But we are talking of a virtue which is nothing whatsoever to do with society and its moralities. Virtue can only come about when there is psychological order within oneself. That is, when we understand the whole social structure, the psychological structure of society of which we are, then in that understanding of that, there is order. And therefore, that order brings about virtue. And without that virtue, mind cannot possibly have clarity. And therefore, sanity and virtue go together. And I think it's very important to understand this. Because for most of us, virtue is a very tiresome thing, rather silly, old-fashioned. It is without much significance, especially in the modern world. Not that we are advocating immorality or this superficial morality, but we are inquiring together, I hope, into this question of what is true virtue. Because without orderliness, that is, as one keeps a room orderly, tidy, neat, clean, and you do this every day, and so inward order demands much more attention, much more awareness of what is taking place inwardly. Being aware of all the thoughts and feelings, the open and the hidden secret desires and pursuits. And out of that comes order, which is virtue. And if one inquires into virtue still more, one sees it is not a thing that you have it permanently. And that's the beauty of virtue. You cannot say, I have learned what it is to be virtuous, and it's over. Virtue is not a continuous phenomenon. Virtue, which is order, is from moment to moment. And therefore, there is freedom in virtue.
The final extract in this episode is from the first talk in Amsterdam 1969 and is titled, Krishnamurti, Are You Crazy?
Are you crazy? Sir, are you crazy? Is that the question? Are you asking the speaker if he is crazy? Good. I wonder what you mean by that word crazy. Unbalanced, mentally ill, with peculiar ideas. Unhealthy, mentally, neurotic, off balance, all that's implied in that word crazy. Now, who is to judge? You or somebody else? Whether the speaker is crazy or not? Seriously, please, who is to judge? Will the crazy person judge who is crazy and who is not crazy? And please follow this up a little more. If you judge whether balanced or unbalanced, is judgment, is not judgment part of this craziness of this world? To judge somebody, not knowing a thing about him, except the reputation, the image that you have about him. And if you judge according to the reputation, propaganda, this, that, all the things, then are you capable of judging? And the implication of judgment is vanity. Whether the neurotic is vain or the sane man is vain, it's the same, vanity. Can vanity perceive what is true? Or do you need great humility to look, to understand, to love? So it's one of the most difficult things to be sane in this abnormal, insane world. Sanity means to have no illusion whatsoever about oneself or about another. That is, to have no image at all about oneself. To say, I am this, I am that, I am great, I am small, I am better, I am noble. All those are images about oneself. And when one has an image about oneself, one is surely insane. One lives in a world of illusion. And I'm afraid most of us do. When you call yourself a Dutchman, forgive me for saying so, you're not quite balanced. You separate yourself, isolate yourself as they do when they call themselves Hindu. These nationalistic religious divisions, with their armies, with their priests, indicate a state of mental insanity.